Welcome everyone to today's webinar, SMEs Twin Transition to Sustainability and Digital Transformation. Today we are joined by Dr. Ashish Sharma. Dr. Sharma is the founding director and CEO of an environmental sustainability consulting firm, Sustainability Alternatives. He is also engaged as a principal research scientist at the Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi. Today's webinar will highlight the importance of building resilience to the future for SMEs via intelligent use of cutting-edge technologies for business agility and tools. Thank you for logging in today, and I will now hand over to Dr. Sharma.
Thanks, Derek, for such a nice and quick introduction. We chose this topic of SMEs twin transition through digital transformation and sustainability because for last 2 years, we have been worst affected by the COVID pandemic. So, and then, we have been, all these companies have been witnessing the transition through sustainability. And then we see, sort of challenges basically in terms of recovery, and particularly the SMEs are faced with these specific challenges of digital transformation, integrating digitization and digital tools into their business practices. And then, there's a growing awareness about race to zero and integrating sustainability into their business models. So the goal is really to see that we never imagined actually that there will be such sort of pandemic which will hit us globally. So it's really important to highlight that how to build the future readiness for the crisis. So I'm Dr. Ashish Sharma. I am founding CEO of Sustainability Alternatives Limited. For last 10 years, I've been working for sustainability in the projects related to sustainability. I've been fortunate to work across different continents and have learned with my cross-cultural meetups and education and research overseas. So this is how I broadly structured my talk for today's webinar. Firstly, we'll begin with a brief sort of introduction about our firm, and then we will take some sort of deep dive in terms of the background and the context about how environmental sustainability in general has been affected in the post-COVID-19 era. And then in terms of SMEs, how SMEs particularly are affected in the post-COVID-19 era. And then we'll move further to the two specific challenges of digital transformation, and then how to build resilience for SMEs. And then we'll sort of highlight the business model innovation tools and why it's high time for the businesses to really look and have a deeper look into their business practices and how they can really integrate sustainability at the core of their business models. And finally, we'll end with the key takeaways and some of the impact of the research and the work we have been doing so far. So the mission and vision of our company, Sustainability Alternatives, has really been to design and implement sustainability strategies and programs together to maximize the profitability as well as the long-term value creation in terms of creating a shared future of the sustainable growth for development and sort of inclusive social innovation. And the mission of Sustainability Alternatives is really the vision to embark towards sustainable futures. We work with diverse clients from the developing and developed countries, particularly from the global south, and we really help them to transform their the landscape of their sustainability. We help them to co-create, co-design, and co-implement strategies to reduce their carbon footprint, mitigate toxic emissions, and achieve net zero emissions target. So let's have some broader look at how environmental sustainability in general has been affected in the post-COVID-19 era. So this slide is really to sort of reflect back and to learn, unlearn, and relearn in the face of COVID-19 pandemic and what we did wrong and what we can improve based on these experiences. So COVID-19 basically came as an early signal, but a late warning, basically. So it taught us few lessons, but it was not expected. But then the positive side is that it really helped us to understand the implications of such pandemics, and when particularly they are not envisioned or imagined, or when we don't expect such sort of challenges. So, and why this has really happened, I mean, if you look at the nitty-gritty of things, then we see that rapid urbanization is happening across the globe, and particularly in the Asia and the African countries. So we see, and then the rapid energy demand and building rapid pressure, surmounting rapid sort of pressure onto the limited sort of resources on a planet. Uh, so it's really very important to understand that what we can change, actually, what we can do better and what we can undo, basically. So in this pandemic, what we really see is that environmental degradation has been one of the causes of the risk of these pandemics. And then it also taught us that there is certainly a potential, there is a potential for collective action to mitigate such challenges. And this is a typical human nature and psychology, that when we are perceived with a common threat, then we take collective action, we take a broader picture, we should rest and then try to have a very fresh perspective on the ideas. So what can be done differently, basically, to build upon a novel innovation and novel tools and technologies, and to integrate novelty into our business practices. And most importantly, I think human health has been the most vulnerable sort of topics, if I may say. Then human health and environmental integrity are really integrated, so they are interrelated. We cannot separate one from the other. We'll share some of the research findings from one of our research papers, which particularly highlights this topic, that how human health and environmental integrity are interrelated, and how excessive and massive exploitation of the natural resources and anthropogenic activities and anthropogenic emissions from transport sectors, industries, have really impacted the human health and environmental sustainability in general. And then I think it's really high time to really build back better and to really rethink our conventional approaches to conduct business. And then we have to really transition, like a fast transition to sustainable business practices, and how we can really integrate those sustainability practices. So this is one of the research papers. Here we really looked into the impact of COVID-19 lockdown or air inequality in Indian megacities. So it was titled as Temporary Reduction of Fine Particulate Matter in Indian megacities during the lockdown period. So while we found that, during lockdown, there was significant reduction in the PM 2.5 emissions, and up to the order of 54% reductions were possible. And these reductions are almost similar to other Asian and European countries. And the modeling also found that PM 2.5 concentrations and their aerosol size was sort of observed, the significant difference in terms of aerosol sort of concentrations. And I particularly took the lead in terms of PM 2.5 PM 2.5 reduction and how it led to health benefits, and then I quantified in terms of the economic benefits of reducing such PM 2.5 concentration in Indian megacities. So during the COVID lockdown, there was significant reduction in the business activities, and then there was significant reduction into the transport activities, which then led to the reduction in the PM 2.5 concentrations, and finally it was quantified in terms of health benefits, that it prevented almost 630 premature deaths, which were avoided. And these were then valued and quantified at the rate of $0.69 billion US approximately. So this is a whopping number, considering the fact that India is still a sort of developing and growing economy, fast growing. So it's on its pace, it's on its way to become the fourth largest or third largest economy in the world soon. But it's very important really to consider and to assess, to take a deep dive into such sustainability issues, and how to really empower and motivate, to encourage SMEs to integrate sustainability. This is particularly important because SMEs have been the backbone and the lifeblood of these developing countries such as India. So the real India really, as we say, lies in the agricultural sector, into the rural sector. So it's very important to encourage these sort of SME. This slide really shows, divides all these countries across the globe into four major categories, as struggling cities in pink color, and then emerging cities, mostly you see in India and China and far eastern cities, and some in South America and all. So what you see is that most of the cities in Africa and Indian subcontinent are really, emerging cities where rapid urbanization is happening. And in fact, there is a rapid change in shift in land use changes. And almost 80% of global cropland loss occurs due to such urbanization into Asia and African sort of cities. So this growing consumption in cities is definitely impacting the ecological health of neighboring regions, and is almost responsible for almost two-thirds of energy use and 60% of domestic raw material consumption, which is really growing rate of consumption. Now, are our cities really best positioned to witness such growth, and are they really well positioned to tackle such growth in a sustainable fashion so that we don't do massive damage to the planet, so that we conduct businesses responsibly and ethically, and so that we conserve this planet not only for the use of present generations, but also for the future generations to get their fair share of access to the natural resources. Coming specifically to our core topic, that how SMEs have particularly suffered into the post-COVID-19 era. So small businesses, as we know, make significant contributions to the global economy and into the economies in the global south. But in spite of the fact that SMEs are the lifeblood and really important for such economies, but still they are very fragile. They are fragile financially. They are fragile in terms of integration of next generation technologies, and they are fragile in terms of the access to the latest knowledge and knowledge base. They don't have enough resources, and then also they don't have right resilience and the agility to cope up with such unprecedented and unwanted sort of natural hazards and pandemics. Particularly narrowing down it, then we can see the service sector, particularly the hotels, airline, and these sort of in the hospitality industries were the worst affected. And then overall, we can say that the negative impacts of these pandemic were observed not only in the economic domain, but also political, socio-economic, and mental and psychological health and human well-being as well. This was, in fact, this was the most significant sort of impact in terms of human health, particularly the psychological health and the depression it sort of led to. So what is needed basically, what we need is we need a paradigm shift in terms of the digital transformation of SMEs, and then we know what are the latest technologies often which we talk about. These are artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, cloud technologies, and Internet of Things. So they are also referred to as ABCD technologies or blockbuster technologies. So why, firstly, sustainable digitalization should happen, and what is sustainable digitalization? So when we talk about digital transformation, then digital transformation is basically an overarching broader sort of goal, sort of destination, which all these SMEs should target to achieve. So the digital transformation, in order to achieve, there are some steps to it. One of the steps is digitization. And when we talk about digitization and digitalization and digital transformation are three different terms. Digitization is basically when you create the digital footprint and digital model of your physical processes and products, whereas digital transformation is how you improve your processes, your manufacturing processes, your the way you conduct businesses, how you improve those processes, and how you integrate technology into improving those processes, into increasing the productivity and efficiencies. Then this is called a sustainable sort of digitalization. And then finally, the real goal is really to achieve the digital transformation across different products and services, including your supply chains and how you engage with your stakeholders. So basically, sort of bigger sort of the vision and mission of all these SMEs, it has to be their digital transformation. So now, drawing an analogy with the Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, I think that it's a very popular sort of code which is customized in the context of digital transformation. So presently, we are living in an era of Industrial Revolution 4.0. So the Industrial Revolution 4.0 has already started. And the digital Darwinism, what it means basically is that both the societies and technologies are evolving much faster than the pace with which they are being assimilated and adapted by these SMEs and small and medium scale enterprises and businesses. So previously, Charles Darwin's theory, as we know it, was that, survival of the fittest. Those who are fit, physically fit, economically viable, are the ones who will survive. But I think that definition is tweaked now. So how we can reframe it in the present context day is that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is really adaptable to change. So this is the sort of code which should be really a sort of torch bearer for such SMEs and businesses which are really looking for embracing the change, and the change for a positive, for the social good, actually, for the sustainable development goals. So when we talk about digital transformation, then I think it's very important to understand what should be the key goals to aim for digital transformation. Firstly, I think it's very important that such a transformation will help SMEs to build resilience, to better cope with any existential threats, and to mitigate such risk. And then, of course, as we know, and we often talk about ESG, environmental, social, and governance topics, and also sustainability and CSR, that it really helps the companies to build competitive advantage. So it's not only the goodwill, but it's also in the long run good for earning the profits also, because the stakeholders and investors are largely looking for the impact investing. They are largely looking to invest into the companies and SMEs and startups which are very conscious, which are socially, environmentally, and from business point of view, they are very conscious. So the businesses which are conducting their operations ethically and also in an environmental conscious manner, they are the ones who are receiving the funding, and also whose prices of shares will significantly gain competitive advantage in the future. So you can say that not only in the long-term prospects, but even in the short runs, there are definitely gains. Now, also, I think these sort of goals of digital transformation will definitely help to maximize business opportunities and to multiply revenue generation streams. And how it will do is that, because it will definitely help to make processes more predictive, more fluid and adaptable to the change, and making them more consistent, interconnected, and linked with each other. And such a digital transformation will enhance employee engagement and collaboration, and will really boost the productivity across the supply chain, across the different departments of the businesses. And overall, I think it is expected that it will really help to build a connected ecosystem of employees, partners, and customers. So it's more like a win-win sort of situation, not only for the business owners, sustainability entrepreneurs, but also for the planet, for the countries, and also globally, basically. So now, what are the four main technologies which we often refer to as ABCD or blockbuster technologies? So these are, as we know already, that artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, and data analytics. Also, Internet of Things, and the increasing reliance on the sensors, low-cost sensors, to reduce the cost of high-end instruments and all. So there are recently the surveys, including the research from Grandview Research and also Fortune Insight magazine. They have highlighted that the market of artificial intelligence is supposed to grow to the share of, to a whopping number of almost 1.4 trillion US dollar, whereas the cloud computing market is estimated to grow to up to 1.5 trillion US dollars. And now all these are basically really very big numbers, and almost equivalent to half of the size of some of the economies. Small and small sized countries. So, and how these technologies are really impacting the way we conduct business and how they are helping to achieve sustainable development goals is that, they are already helping and guiding entrepreneurs and businesses in terms of aiming towards a circular economy. They are helping to develop sustainable business practices and to help and develop such ethos at the core of the business models. So, in fact, if we look specifically, then cloud adoption can help reduce emissions by up to 23 to 27%. And the other example, if you take a very simplistic example, is that of self-driving cars, the autonomous vehicles. So through the increased use of sensors, big data analytics, and increased use of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, they can go for optimized route choices. They can reduce emissions by reducing the travel time, by reducing the exposure of the occupants. And in fact, it is expected that self-driving cars will reduce emissions by up to 50% in the next 30 years due to improved route choices and all. So what these blockbuster technologies have done is that they have ensured a continuity in an otherwise fragmented world. They have helped to establish new collaborations and alignments in a socially fragmented world. And in fact, Gartner reports have highlighted that almost 50% of analytical decisions will be using insights of AI to make well-informed and insightful decisions. So this is already being done, and this is happening, and we are seeing positive trends across a very diverse range of startups from across the globe, if we consider the best practice examples. So now, trying to really understand the digitalization process, as we discussed before, the digitalization comes midway between digitalization and the digital transformation. So digitalization is more like a highway, basically, to achieve and integrate sustainable digital transformation. So as we know that the fourth industrial revolution has significantly reduced resource use and pollution. And in fact, it has been helping into the SDG 12 and several other SDGs to improve the quality of life and increasing energy efficiency across different manufacturing sectors and helping companies in very different ways. For example, in case of 3D printing, which is one of the examples of additive manufacturing. So this is already happening. And all these blockbuster technologies are really capable to accelerate and maximize the effects of environmental measures. And then a thriving digital ecosystem is already bringing forward the innovative green companies. It's enabling them, it's helping them, it's bringing sort of resources and know-how to them. And in order to keep up with our longer-term plan of mitigating climate crisis, in order to keep our global mean temperature rise to critical 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then also in terms of supply chains, it's helping to become them more circular. For example, in terms of helping the repairability of the products. For example, for SMEs, increasingly they are helping in terms of reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose, and remake. All these, a number of re's, which are helpful for the companies and for the planet. And they are sort of more like enabling, providing enabling environments and technologies and tools. For instance, there is one of the case studies by IKEA. So IKEA has been actually reusing their byproducts and also the crop stubble in the state of Punjab in northern India. So as we know that in northern India, air pollution is a serious issue in particularly states like Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, and these states. So there is a very diverse range of sources which are contributing to air pollution in the northern states. And then people in the Delhi, they complain that the pollution is coming from other states, whereas the people in other adjoining states like Punjab, they say they are already sources of pollution in Delhi, like industries and all. So it's very difficult really to come up with a solution and a strategy to really identify, to source apportion all these sources of pollution. So what IKEA did was that crop stubble burning by farmers in Punjab was a major issue. So they utilized the crop stubble and they utilize it as an input for their products. And then it's a sort of win-win sort of strategy. Now, of course, all these technologies are really helping to achieve such a transformation. So even in terms of computer hardwares and softwares, climate neutral CPUs we are hearing nowadays, and then server centers, they are optimizing energy efficiency across all these sectors, and then helping us indirectly to really achieve our ambitious climate goals. So sustainable B2B digitalization is really a long-term process. And for SMEs in the shorter run, they often complain, and there are studies that for the shorter run, for the short-term goals, it may not be viable for SMEs really to imagine benefits over this shorter duration. So in fact, there are studies which says that SMEs in the shorter run, they lose rather than gaining in terms of the cost involved for such digital transformation. While there is a counter argument that big companies cannot really leapfrog. It is mainly the SMEs and the small and medium scale sector which can really bring about radical transformation across their business models, whereas in terms of big companies and MNCs and big corporate houses, they can hardly sort of they have to do rapid and massive changes, which are sometimes not possible because they are already developed systems and processes. So I think we have to, rather than having a very myopic and short-sighted view, we have to look at the long-term gains and to march ahead with the courage and conviction towards these goals, that ESG and sustainability is really there to help SMEs in the long-term goals. And what SMEs can really do is to leapfrog. So rather than adhering to the practices which were being used by their counterparts 100 years before, what they can do is really leapfrog and mark a paradigm shift, basically. For instance, if you talk about agriculture, then what we see is that large deployment of IoT and sensors in the agricultural farmlands can help to achieve sustainable food production and to improve planet health. For instance, there could be a range of sensors deployed at different parts of the farmland, and then it can help to better monitor the soil moisture, temperature, and also help in a way to utilize all these parameters to sort of forecast even the productivity, and to even envisage and to plan to better position in terms of any futuristic shortage of food supplies and crops and production. So this such data really provides meaningful and useful insights, and which is really actionable intelligence. So now in terms of AI particularly, AI has been helping to achieve energy production and to achieve energy efficiency in the building sector and across wide range of manufacturing practices, be it water treatment or be it the automation of traditional business processes. It improves the productivity, it helps to reduce the cost, and then it in the longer run it's helping the business in terms of the overall net production. And smart technologies, such as smart technologies, are also redefining the engagement of people from wide range of backgrounds, and particularly we often talk about the digital divide. Basically, when we talk about the global south, the developing countries, whether it's South America, South Africa, or Indian subcontinent, we experience that there is a great digital divide. There was a great digital divide which has now been changing. So it's very important that how technologies can really help to increase equity and social inclusion. For instance, there is a conference and United Nations conference going on in Delhi, and if there is no digital connectivity, then it's only the people or residents of Delhi or London who can really benefit with such conference or with such engagement. Whereas if we see that if there people are having more and more people across the rural areas are having access to the technologies and internet, to 5G internet basically, then it's really redefining their engagement and widening the equity and access to such technologies. And in fact, in the healthcare sector particularly, we can see how it has been helping in terms of people from the rural rural areas are really having reach to the consultations of doctors and all. Particularly in the COVID-19 pandemics, we have seen a rapid surge in terms of online consultations of GPs and all. So it's also helping in terms of interoperability, in terms of developing and refining the technologies of tomorrow. It's building resilience and innovative SMEs and helping startups to build large data sets, basically. Now, when it comes to building and when it comes to building resilience of SMEs, then what basically we need, what's the need of the hour, is the policy coherence. It has become more important than ever, particularly in the post-COVID-19 era. So what these companies and startups need is a long-term vision and leadership and coordination amongst different stakeholders. For instance, there has to be increased coordination of state government, central government, and state governments. Sometimes the rules are formed at the central government, and then there is a missing synchronization and implementation at the state government. So there has much more need of whole of the government coordination and subnational engagement, and overall stakeholder engagement has to be widened. So everyone has to really sit together to really not think and work on strategies in silos, not to think and work in installments, but to act together from the very early beginning, beginning stage throughout the life cycle stage of all these processes and the broader vision of all these companies. So there is a need of political commitment, long-term vision, policy integration, and long-term policy impacts in terms of particularly the well-being, social well-being of the people and also the planet. Particularly, there has to be much more focus on the psychological well-being of the people, and in terms of fair work and equities and inclusion. Everyone should have a say in terms of long-term decision making, and stakeholders should have. There has to be a transparency, not only in accounting of how you are mitigating GHG emissions, how sustainable are your business practices, but also there has to be transparency in terms of technology adoption and sharing of technology by big corporates to the small companies. In terms of building resilience of SMEs, how the small startups and companies like ours, for example, sustainability alternatives, how we can connect the dots, how we can help these companies to build resilience. Sustainability alternatives that work day in and out. While we educate, we conduct a lot of outreach activities, and sometimes most of these activities are voluntary and free of cost. We don't charge for these activities to really develop this pull and push and the market demand basically for the sustainability. Now it's the case that in the developed countries and advanced countries like US and UK, many stakeholders and customers are already aware about the long-term benefits of environmental consciousness and conducting business responsibility and ethically. But there is a wide gap in terms of South and developing countries such as India and Africa. There is still a train use their carbon and environmental footprint, and how it can be done. This is how sustainability alternatives and such startups which are deeply embedded into digital innovation and environmental sustainability really help with such tools. And one of the examples of such tools, as I'm talking to very advanced audience and informed audiences, all of us know about sort of ESG. So such tools are basically very helpful, and they are conducted. This sort of framework of ESG is conducted and devised in different steps. So the very first step to start with is the materiality assessment, where different stakeholders sit together, they brainstorm, and they try to understand that what are the sustainability issues which are of most pressing needs to them, which are the issues which are most dear to them, and also in terms of whether they are achievable or not within the scope of their resources, time frame, and also how they align with their long-term mission and vision of the company's mission and vision, and how, if needed, they can tweak their business models to design such sustainability sort of initiatives and design such ESG framework, which is deeply rooted with the long-term vision of achieving climate change mitigation and other sustainable development goals. So the second step is really to understand the business as usual, to really understand to conduct this benchmarking, to understand the baseline sort of emissions and impacts, then to design these objectives and goals, and to then understand these gaps in terms of where they want to head, what they want to achieve, and what are the gaps, and how these objectives will really help them to achieve such target goals. And then to design a working strategy to achieve those goals, and then how they can monitor and measure and report different key performance indicators related to their final goals. And then there has to be transparency in reporting and communication of their goals. So when we talk about long-term organizational stability, so traditionally businesses have always focused in terms of the financial assets, which were always visible in terms of companies' accounts. So this is one of the examples from COVID-19 enterprise resilience framework. This is from Ernst and Young research. So they divided this into a sort of this chart, which discusses how really these intangible assets are more like the foundation, should be more like the should be prioritized and highlighted as the foundation for these companies in terms of the value creation. So the financial assets were always visible, and they were these were the values reported by the companies always, even in the traditional business models. And then the corporate governance, those people who are at the top of the leadership, they were leading the shared cost and benefits, were leading with the purpose, and they were sort of responsible for a strategic competitive advantage in the monitoring of this aspect, which is shared cost and benefits. Now they were also visible, and what it has to change really is the stakeholder engagement and social impact. So more than ever before, it's the high time that the company owners, and particularly small and medium scale enterprises, have to really integrate and develop meaningful client relationship in terms of brand value creation and how the sustainability may help them to achieve the unique value proposition, and also in terms of designing a unique business strategy by integrating such sort of practices into their business models. So the long-term vision is very important. And then the externality. So what is indeed the most important pressing issues were sort of neglected traditionally by the traditional business practices. So from the human side of things, it's very important that the companies also focus on the long-term externalities associated with their businesses. These include environmental risk mitigation, environmental impact assessment, overall environmental impact, and indirect impacts of their businesses practices, with a deeper focus on circular economy and natural capital conservation. So they have to be enlightened, the business owners, the sustainability and the sustainability entrepreneurs and SME entrepreneurs have to enlighten themselves that all their business practices are deeply integrated to really look into what are the impacts they are creating, and also the health and well-being and employee satisfaction of all their business practices. Now, finally, to end with, so sustainable business model innovation is also the need of the hour. Now, how this can be done, there are some bullet points which we can highlight now and then later take it further. So this is one of the things that business model innovation is something which the companies have to really rethink, re-innovate, redesign, and market shift in terms of their traditional business practices. They have to be more agile, they have to be more adaptable, and they have to really look at the demand side of things. They have to look at how they can mark a paradigm shift into their current business models. And then, of course, apart from the current challenges of digital business transformation and also sustainability challenges, there have always been challenges of scaling to such small and medium scale enterprises and startups. Now, as traditionally we know, and also this has become more prominent than ever, that partnerships are much more important now than ever before. And all these technologies, ABCD blockbuster technologies, and all these, access to this knowledge base and such webinars and all these sources, online sources, can really transform in terms of partnerships and developing meaningful partnerships which are having global and shared vision of sustainable planet and sustainable vision for all. Now, finally, in terms of key takeaways, I have three main takeaways from this webinar, which we can further brainstorm and discuss, and feel free to reach out to me via Q&A session and drop me emails. So I think the companies have to be really deeply embedded, not only into the economy or the financial aspects or the tangible aspects of their business, but also they have to focus on the intangibles. They have to really focus on the well-being of their staff or the people, planet, and the healthy ecosystems as well. They have to not only meet the basic needs of the people, such as SDG 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 10, including food, water, energy, shelter, sanitation, communication, transport, credit, and health. But also they should also focus on health ecosystems, including particularly SDG 14 and SDG 15, which are life underwater and life on land. So lesser work has been done, particularly in these two SDGs, life underwater and life on land, and much more. There's a lot of scope for these SMEs to really come up with technology, innovative technology solutions using IoT and all blockbuster technologies to really transform how to clean the rivers, oceans, and how to stop the toxic and hazardous wastes from industrial sources to end up into these oceans and rivers. And then finally, in terms of decent work, all these startups have to really focus on secure, socially inclusive frameworks and creating enabling environments where people can coordinate with each other and collaborate with each other. And the final goal definitely has to be the climate stability in terms of limiting GHG levels to stable global temperature rise, and not 2 degrees Celsius, but 1.5 degrees Celsius. And also to align their practices, to align their business model creation, and to align their products and services with the global global and international goals of net zero economy. So there has to be this passion, and there has to be this multiplied sort of passion and fervor and interest really to mark on this journey of aligning our practices and goal to net zero economy. And in fact, there are initiatives such as Race to Zero and all. And then finally, there are stages how this can be done. There is a need to prepare a climate for change. There is a need for creating a robust action plan, which is measurable, which is practical, and which is deeply rooted with innovative technologies. And then there is a need to establish a team for change, which can embrace change, which can be sustainability change leaders. We need to clearly award and design such awards for sustainability thought leaders, sustainability impact business leaders, and change leaders. Then we have to really conduct such webinars and events and conferences to enhance ESG and sustainability outreach. We have been doing from our end, and most of the times, sort of voluntarily. And there's much more scope and need to connect the dots and to widen such engagement. And finally, there is a need to sustain such culture of change. And finally, this is final takeaway. This summarizes the long-term benefits of ESG strategy, which we have been discussing since the early start of this presentation. So the long-term value has to be considered not in terms of the material gains or the gains in terms of financial aspects, but also we have to create more ESG opportunities and risk. As we know, there cannot be more hand-holding. We have to create viable business models and innovative startups, but those have also should benefit from such businesses. So the profits are also very important. We cannot ignore profits, and this is the role of government and policy leaders to really increase subsidies and make such policies which can empower such innovative startups such as ours, for instance, sustainability alternatives, and there are many other similar alternatives in the UK and other countries. So there has to be increased awareness that it will help small businesses and big businesses in terms of overall brand creation, overall improving their brand reputation and competitive advantage, and also to integrate engagement and to enhance and widen engagement of consumers, employees, and wide range of stakeholders. And it will definitely create a very unique sort of market differentiation and a USP if they really mark towards such a journey of integrating sustainability into their business models. And finally, this will help build them enhanced relationship with the stakeholders and impact investors by building trust in terms of how responsibly these businesses are being conducted. These are some of the impact statements from some of our work over the last 10 years. We have widely presented about wide range of issues on air pollution, be it University of Toledo in Ohio State, SMEs conference in Brazil, or Guildford Car Free Day conducted, hosted by Global Center of Clean Air Research, based at University of Surrey in Guildford. And then most of our research led also, to the development of guidance documents. This has been translated to 70 plus different languages, including Spanish, French, and many other languages, even Portuguese and Hindi. And then finally, this is one of the presentation with IES we did last year, and this is the second presentation. And we continue and hope to build better ties with IES and other similar think tanks to conduct ESG and sustainability outreach activities, and then maybe engage with COP26 and similar sort of conferences. These are some of our publications. Feel free to visit our website. From 2017 to 2021, we published a lot of research articles on mitigating air pollution exposure to babies in trains and bike trailers, and most of it were widely covered by BBC, Telegraph, Huffington Post, and almost 100 plus international media articles. And then about life cycle assessment also of alternative transport fuels. In Sydney, in Australia, we did at Macquarie University in Sydney. And then several other research work we have been doing. So finally, thanks for attending this webinar, and this is the time for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. And we don't have a lot of time for the Q&A, but we do have one question. And it's just from Lucy to see if you can give us a little bit more information on how cloud computing saves emissions.
So definitely very interesting question. So cloud computing has been helping reducing emissions, in terms of, firstly, I would say in terms of energy efficiency, and also in terms of, we don't need typical physical storage as we were having previously. For example, there could be, a very small and medium scale company with very less access to finance and resources. Now they cannot really afford to have a supercomputer of their own. For instance, we at Sustainability Alternatives, we don't have a supercomputer of our own. So what we can do is such businesses adopt, shared economy models, such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more like a shared economy model. Similarly, Airbnb or there are different other platforms. So what we are trying to do is we are not creating new systems and processes from scratch, but we are sort of sharing resources. So what has changed over last few years is that the perception of sharing of resources. Let's say if the cloud computing cloud is already there by biggies, technology giants such as Microsoft and Amazon and all these, then small business owners particularly don't have to recreate these things from scratch, because it's not economically viable, and then it's also not very helpful in the long run. And in terms of energy savings, it does help to reduce in terms of GHG emission savings, because then you are running lesser number of computers and sharing resources, and then energy optimization and all.
And do you find that the biggest challenge you've got with the SMEs is financial constraints, or do you think it's more the education around the benefits of some of these changes?
I think the bigger challenge, and also I think all these challenges, we cannot say that one size fit all. Let's say if the small business owners, we for instance are based out of London, we are fortunate enough that we are lucky enough, we have very very diverse team of people who are very well connected, very well informed. They are having access. They frequently travel to London and all these advanced countries, and they are very well informed in terms of UK government's initiatives, whether it's London Mayor's office, of what sort of initiatives and subsidies they are offering to small and medium scale business owners. But on the other hand, let's say we are picking, let's say a very small business owner, let's say a fruit shop in, let's say in outskirts and in, let's say in a normal state, let's say state of Uttar Pradesh in India. Now he is not very well informed. He is not also very technologically, technologically informed how he can access all these resources. And he is not even informed what are the Indian government's, sort of missions and objectives and how he or she can benefit. So I think you are totally right. Firstly, I think the major challenge, if I say for the developing countries, is the financial sort of lack of access to the financial instruments, lack of access to capital, lack of access to the savings. They don't have enough savings, so they immediately focus in terms of immediate savings and returns and margins and profits. They don't have stock of finance. Whereas if I talk about UK, I mean, this could be different issue. I mean, their priorities may be different. Finance always remains an issue, even in the advanced countries, but it's more of an issue of the developing countries in the global south. And then the second issue is knowledge base. Now, knowledge base to an entrepreneur based out of UK or US may not be that much of a challenge because they are well informed, given the access to transport and all. So, I think both are important, but finance is more important in terms of, global south sort of countries.
Perfect, thank you for that. So that's us for the Q&A. If anyone does have any questions, we're happy to share Dr. Sharma's details so that you can contact. So that's it from us today. Thank you for logging in. I hope you found it beneficial and informative. I just want to say thank you again to Dr. Sharma and thank you everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Derek. Thanks a lot. It's always a pleasure to engage with the IES. And I look forward to the final version and to engage for further such sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.